4 years ago, before the delimitation exercise, before the abrogation of special status, before the movie made that came to focus what happened 20 years ago, we raised a simple premise on this news channel. The then Jammu and Kashmir Assembly allowed for 24 seats lying vacant for the districts and constituencies currently in what is Pakistan occupied Kashmir. The Indian Constitution and the makeup of Parliament allowed for 7 seats in the Lok Sabha of this country for Gilgit, for Muzaffarabad, for Mirpur representatives to take their oath and represent their voices. There were up to 13 lakh displaced persons, in other words, refugees, people who had left PoK and were residing in India, and their families, people who escaped the massacre of Mirpur and what happened in Muzaffarabad, who were not given a political fraternity, a political voice, just as Kashmiri Pandits should be able to raise their own voice on the floor of the Indian Parliament without having to seek representation either on television or on the cinema screens. These were obvious factors, and you can juxtapose it to the next obvious. There is no reason that a resident of PoK should not come under the jurisdiction of the Srinagar High Court and the Supreme Court of India. There is no reason why the SHOs and the district magistrates and district collectors for all these districts should not be appointed to look after these affairs. Everything short of the geostrategic decision to reintegrate Jammu and Kashmir through physical force, everything else should have already been done. That was 4 years ago. Now here we are. I'm happy to tell you that momentum and consensus around this is building. A couple of days ago, as you're aware, if you've been watching us all day yesterday, a parliamentary standing committee led by the incumbent vice president and other members of parliament have suggested that a census exercise of all displaced persons from PoK should be done at the earliest, and the 7 seats in parliament in Lok Sabha put aside for PoK, Gilgit, Muzaffarabad, Mirpur should be filled from these displaced persons who have residency or ancestral residency from this. Is it a straightforward logic? No. Will it require the Election Commission now to put its mind on it? Yes. Should we have political consensus on this? Yes. To the point that we have sat with an organization called the New World Order, Hindol Sen Gupta, senior journalist, good friend of mine, whose team has actually drafted the changes in rules and regulations and code of conduct that will be required in order to make an allowance for this. India does have a system of voting, mail ballot voting. We do have a system of nomination of members of parliament. So it is possible. It's a matter of figuring out how to do it. So let me now open up this conversation. Utpal Kaul is joining us on the broadcast. Let me also invite Abhijit Jasrotia representing the Bharatiya Janata Party. Amjad Ayub Mirza is joining us on the broadcast as well. Kashik Akhun, Kashmiri Pandit is with us, and Jameel Maqsood of the UK PNP on the broadcast with us as well. Mr. Kaul, now, at least the good news is that the momentum on this seems to be building. We have the Parliamentary Standing Committee report. Everybody we've interviewed, and we've had four hours of conversation on this yesterday on this channel, more or less have agreed that this needs to get done. Is there an idea whose time has come, sir?
Rishibji, thank you very much for inviting me for this very important debate. And let me tell you that these 13 lakh PoK refugees who came to Jammu and in different districts, they were denied basic rights. It was such a tragedy. And Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah and the further regimes and the central government is totally responsible for ignoring them all these 75 years. It was such a tragedy. When I was a child going to school, I was seeing all these PoK refugees going in Raghunath Bazaar and in Jammu streets, crying for that they should be equal citizens, there should be human rights for them, education institutions should be open for them. But Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah kept with the Nehru these 24 seats, but never did.
Here is the bottom line. Utpal Kaul, had these seats been filled by representation in 1952 onwards, 24 seats out of a 130 member assembly, that would have fundamentally changed 80 years of Kashmiri politics.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. And I may tell you that I met 2 times delimitation commission, and it is chairman and full commission. And I stressed the need that PoK refugees should be included and they should get representation in Indian Parliament and in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. And I also requested and gave them full detail how Kashmiri Pandits were just ignored all these years. We don't have proper representation neither in Parliament nor in Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. So we have demanded that 5 seats should be given to us, and then 2 seats in Parliament also. So
Yes.
Our
This
voice
is
should be heard.
roughly exactly.
Our
We are showing snippets of the conversation we began in early 2019 on the left side of our screens, and this is exactly the plan we presented. Of the 5 seats, 5 of them should be given to representatives of the POJK displaced persons. 2 seats should be given to Kashmiri Pandits, because Utpal Kaul, Kashi Akhund should not require my voice, Vivek Agnihotri voice to represent them. They are fully capable of representing themselves and their community in the Indian Parliament. They don't need the rest of us to be proxies for them, and we have to be fundamentally attuned to this logic. People can represent themselves in a representative democracy. They don't need the rest of us to speak for them. We need to provide them the opportunity to speak for themselves, and the denial of that opportunity has fundamentally fixed the politics, and I use this word with a lot of care and caution, fixed the politics of Jammu and Kashmir for 80 years, and the time has come for different mindsets now to prevail. Kashi Akhund, here we are, sir, 4 years later since I first began speaking about this. We have the Parliamentary Standing Committee endorsement that is not meritorious of law. It's just a suggestion at this stage, a formal suggestion. What should be the obvious next step?
Sir, thank you very much for inviting us today in this important debate. Basically, this is an important point. Kashmiri Hindus and PoK refugees who were residing on that part of the line of control, and from this part of the control, Hindus were denied the political rights since 1947. And let me tell you, when we were in Kashmir, when there were elections, and whenever we were going to the polling booths to poll our votes, we were being told that Panditji, please go back, your vote has been already casted here. So in real sense, Kashmiri Pandits have never enjoyed our right to franchise, right to vote in Kashmir. And in 1990, as all everybody know, we have been forcibly exiled from our...
No, but that's the problem, Kashi Akhund, that's the problem. Though. You know, what
Yes.
you're talking about is manipulation and rigging of votes. Forget that. The very fact that the Kashmiri Pandit population has been so dispersed that in any constituency, whether there be a small community in Delhi or in Kanpur or in Lucknow or in Jammu, are unable to influence the votes, means that the politics of Kashmir has been fundamentally altered 30 years ago. I am saying forget 30 years, it's been 80 years. So what is stopping us from correcting this? The provision in the constitution for these seats already exists. We don't have to do much.
Yes, thank you very much. Because of this, Delimitation Commission has given us representation. They have recommended, but they have recommended only 2 seats. We were expecting at least 7 seats for Kashmiri Hindus who are lying in exile, but so that we can represent ourselves in assembly as well as in parliament. But it was our dismay, we have not seen any recommendation for ours in the parliament. Still, it is not too late.
What I don't understand is 80 years after independence, if I can still have 2 Anglo-Indian nominees, why I can't have 2 Kashmiri Pandit nominees? But I understand that this has to be a constitutional framework. The seats already exist. You don't have to amend the constitution to create extra seats. Okay, so that is already done. You have to defreeze them, which is what the Parliamentary Standing Committee has said. And you need the Election Commission of India to come out with a formula on how the tabulation of either the Kashmiri Pandits or the POJK displaced person is going to be done, and on what basis of residency can they be allowed to vote from their respective resident constituencies. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. Abhijit Jasrotia, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Abhijit ji, how do we take this one step forward now that I don't think you're in disagreement with this either? How do we take this one step forward?
See, Rishabh, one thing is there that what lacked from past 7 decades was intention and intensity to reclaim POJK also and to reclaim all those seats. Now, after 2014, things have changed over here. and you can very well imagine the way our government is heading it, things are going to change. But what I would like everybody to know through NewsX is the history of 1947, because 1947, after that rodomontade speech, which then our Prime Minister made, in which he was talking that when whole of the world will be sleeping in India, at the stroke of the midnight will wake up to independence, whereas half of the world was awake and boast for our independence, including those also who misruled us for, or rather made us slave for 200 years. Leaving all those things aside, you know why POJK refugees were become POJK refugees for 7 decades. Reason was very simple. In 1947, when Pakistan army camouflaged as Kawalis attacked Kashmir and they entered into our area, they came up to Baramulla. And after that, when our Indian army came and they were able to, take back all those areas of POJK, if you remember. But those areas were given in a
Okay,
platter
but yeah,
back.
but we know all of these things, right? So, what my question is
what
that,
I want to say,
should we unfreeze the seats, sir? Should we do it? Should we now appeal to the Election Commission to come up with a formula to unfreeze these seats?
That is what I am saying, because the intentions and the intensity of this government is to really reclaim POJK also and to take back all those things. And if the things happen, that is going to be very fine. Obviously, constitutional framework is to be taken care in that.
Okay, let's be clear on the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal and belief is the reintegration of PoK with India. Okay, the premise we set out 4 years ago was that every single step, other than the geostrategic step of the physical reintegration, should be done in preparation of that. And just imagine the day, the history that would be made on the day that somebody comes on the floor of the new parliament building in the Lok Sabha and swears into the Indian constitution representing Mirpur, Muzaffarabad and Gilgit. Imagine the gravity of that moment that would be created. Let me get Jameel Maqsood into this conversation. Jameel ji, we have discussed this before. Is there an idea whose time has come?
Thank you very much for holding this another interesting session on the same topic as it was discussed yesterday. What happened in 1947, we all know very well how it was orchestrated and who was behind it and what was the geopolitics of that particular era at the verge of division of British Indian subcontinent. So now it is 75 years. There are two things. One, we have those people who were ousted or pushed back from POJK to Indian administrated areas of Jammu, where they have been living as refugees from the last 75 years. And the other issue is the regions of Muzaffarabad, Gilgit, as you said, two administrative areas which are under the occupation of Pakistan since long. So if the government of India is ready to reintegrate these areas, to recapture these areas and to reunite with the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir, so that will be another scenario. But before that, if they are interested and if they can materialize the representation of these two type of state subjects, one are there under their own administration and one those who are out of their administration. However, if they are legally called the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and as per the Treaty of Accession, they have a legal relationship with the government of India or the state of India. But now it only depends at the will of the government. Do they have substantial support from the international community, from at least 4 members of the permanent members of the UN Security Council, or do they have got?
Yeah, so those questions, you're right, Jameel Maqsood, would come to the point when, which is a geostrategic calculation, and I completely understand what you're talking about, because a pragmatic calculation also has to be done. It can't simply be a chest thumping calculation on the physical reintegration. But short of force, we've just seen that the Pakistani government has re-amended its constitution to officially make PoK a part of the constitutional federal makeup of Pakistan. Up until now, they have following this entire charade that this is actually Azad Kashmir and not Pakistani. They've done that amendment. They repeatedly try to hold elections to give a farce of democracy in PoK. So the option for the Indian government is either to let this farce continue or to say that no, if this is our territory, then the representation should not be happening in Islamabad, it should be happening in Delhi.
Yes, of course. The government of India is a legal partner to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, whereas Pakistan has no locus standi with regard to the Treaty of Accession or with regard to the terms and conditions or the stipulations imposed by the UN Security Council under UNCIP, UNMOGIP, and other UN instruments with regard to Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay.
So this should be emphasized and enforced by the government of India.
Okay.
But now the situation is entirely changed when Pakistani military is occupying all the tourist spaces, and they are going to introduce 15th Amendment to completely disintegrate POJK with the adjacent areas.
Yeah, even the farce of Azad Kashmir is over now. Yes. It's as occupied as it can be. As I've mentioned already, the federal structure has been amended in Pakistan in just the past 1 year in COVID times to make the grip of Islamabad even stronger for obvious reasons, because Pakistan is fearing exactly this will happen. Amjad Ayub Mirza, has the time come that the rightful representatives reflective of a refugee population that was thrown out from these areas should have a voice in India's parliament to represent their own interests?
Well, I think, of course, we should have our voice heard from the floor of Indian parliaments and Indian legislative bodies. If India considers us to be Indian citizens, what I have always been saying is that the people of Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir and the people of occupied Gilgit-Baltistan are Indian citizens, 5.6 nearly million Indian citizens living under the illegal occupation of Pakistan. We are Indian citizens, but we are forced to carry a Pakistani passport. We are Indian citizens, but we are forced to sign an oath of allegiance to Pakistan and to Islamic ideology if we want to have a government job in POJK or if we want to contest elections. So our identity has been crushed, our self-esteem has been crushed. So I think this is now high time that India must address this issue. And plus, as Jamil Maqsood Saab has said, 15th Amendment, this 15th Amendment is going to dissolve POJK geographically. And it's not a matter of years. I can tell you and assure you that if Indian government does not, hurry up, it's only a matter of weeks at most before there will be nothing left.
Would you suspect that there are others in reasonable numbers, such as yourself, who are different categories of displaced persons or refugees, who would actually aspire to and would prefer the rights that the protection of the Indian Constitution offers them?
Of course, I would. I've always wanted to be in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha to represent my people. There's no doubt about that, and there's no, I'm not shying away from confessing that, because I think that my people have suffered for the past 75, 80 years, and they have a right to justice, they have a right to education, they have a right to health, and they have a right to freedom of speech. And we are one people. We are the people of Jammu. We belong to West Jammu, but our identity has been crushed, and they call us Kashmiris. I mean, there's no one in Kashmir, maybe very few handful of people who speak Kashmiri language. We all speak Dogri and Pahari. But
because Kashmir is ironically the Kashmir Valley. What is under Pakistani occupation is Gilgit and West Jammu, where Mirpur and Muzaffarabad are, as you well pointed out. So let me get Utpal Kaul back into this conversation. Utpal Kaul, let's just fructify this in a logical conclusion. Where do I need to take this conversation next? I'm assuming it has to be that now government has to now seriously consider this, set up a committee to take forward from the standing committee, and then forward to the election commission to come up with a plan.
Thank you. Before that, I will give you 30 seconds. I want to say that when we talk of PoK and talk of Mirpur and Muzaffarabad, Bimbar and Kotli. But we must simultaneously say about Gilgit and Baltistan. That is very, very important.
Yeah.
Baltistan, 75,000 kilometers, and that's our land. And if just give me 20 more seconds. Lord Rama sent invitation to Baltistan Brahmins and told them, get Gilgati Brahmins and Brahmins from Kashmir with you for Ashwamedha. Baltistan is very, very important for us. So we cannot leave that alone. And I remember in Gilgit, I have met Brigadier Gansara Singh, who was governor and who was in charge of Gilgit when he was arrested there. So Gilgit and Baltistan is equally very, very important for us. And I think, first of all, Government of India and the Election Commission, Delimitation Commission must give representation those who are are living in Jammu, and they have no right for last 75 years.
Okay.
And we have one more. My suggestion, my personal suggestion, we can declare in future that all those living in POJK and Gilgit-Baltistan are natural citizens of India.
Yeah, that's slightly more complicated because it's been so badly infiltrated. Because you can't then have a terrorist claiming I want my Indian passport. So I know that's slightly more complicated, which is why I'm not been suggesting that for the past 4 years is the first go-to. That has to be the end, logical conclusion. End has to be that if this is your territory, these are your people, you have to remove the infiltrators, clean the place out, and the people of residency should be granted the rights and protections of the Indian Constitution, which is what this is all about. It's not just a territorial land grab. This is about the people living there in the end. And that's where the genesis of this conversation lies. Kashi Akhun, next logical steps.
Rajiv Chunni, the letter to Home Minister, I strongly support that letter, and at least 8 seats from PoK, which should be defreezed as of now for this election. But at the same time, I will tell you that there are 24 seats reserved in J&K Assembly for POJK. So let them freeze 8 at this very moment, and at the same time let there be
so the formula we said exactly that 7 in Parliament was our calculation, 5 for POJK displaced persons, 2 for Kashmiri Pandits. Out of the 24 seats, delimitation would have changed a little bit, but 24 seats, 4 should be for KPs to represent their voice and 20 should be for POJK. What's the point of having them empty? It makes no sense. But Kashi Akhun, for this to happen by 2024, we need the Election Commission to come up with the formula, and for Cabinet to be actively considering this. How do we take this up the chain of command beyond what's already happened?
Yes, that will be the real tribute to the J&K people, and the democracy should come to its roots down.
Okay.
Everybody should enjoy the fruits of the democracy.
Okay, so I'm going to appeal to Abhijit Jasrotia. It would be, let's hope it happens in your and my lifetime for sure. Hopefully sooner. And please help us take this up in the manthan that you do within the party. Back this cause. 2024 general elections. Let's have the first MP from Muzaffarabad, from Gilgit, from Baltistan, from Mirpur in the floor of the Lok Sabha in the new Parliament building. Abhijit, help us out.
Thank you.
Abhijit, yes.
Yeah, even I also agree to that. But one thing I would like to add is that this thing we are not only doing for those people who are living in our part, in our Jammu and Kashmir. It is even for those people who are living in POJK. If you know about an old saying in POJK, still the people of Gilgit and other areas, every night they make a few chapatis extra for Indian Army, just at any time Indian Army can come and they will free us from these clutches and atrocities of Pakistan Army. So even those people are impatiently waiting for us. And let me tell you,
I am convinced. With the caveat that we know that there has been a lot of infiltration and displacement that has been done by the Pakistani authorities, a lot of ethnic people from Jammu and Kashmir, from Gilgit, the Balti language is almost over, were all given passports to migrate abroad so they could empty up the place to fill in people from a different mindset. So with this caveat out there, yes, if an Amjad Ayub Mirza wants to sue the government of Pakistan for the taking away of his property, he should be able to appeal to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court of India. He should have that right. And this is the forward-looking vision that we should take forward. I'm going to appeal to you. I know you guys are all doing your bit. We are doing our bit. We've been at it for 4 years, 4 hours yesterday. The reason we are repeating this again and again, because it's an idea whose time has come, and we appeal to all of you watching this conversation. Let's have consensus, let's have more momentum, and let us come back in the summer of 2024, where all of us can sit live as we are watching the first member of parliament from Mirpur take his or her oath on the floor of the new parliament building in India to the Indian constitution.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.